On the air. You're in the air. You're in the air tonight. Which is not a
Can
song from 1980.
Can I give a shout out to my fans?
To your Vans?
Fans.
Oh, Vans.
Fans.
Thought maybe
It only take a second.
Go ahead.
I want to give a shout out to my fans. Thank you very much for watching me every week.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the actual podcast started. And check 1, 2. Lily?
Check 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear Lily?
10.
Okay, you can hear
Yeah,
Lily.
everything's a go.
It's a copacetic. Okay, let me get this out of my face here. All right. I think I can turn that off. All right. I'll come back to that later.
Oh.
All right, everybody. We're going to get the podcast started here. Welcome back. Please throw comments in. Feel free to comment. We will be addressing some comments and stuff a little bit later on in the show. Okay? All right. I got that. Okay, here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. On this week's Loudini Rock and Roll Circus podcast, we're going to count down the top 10 albums from that magical year, 1984. Son of a bitch.
What happened?
This thing fucked up. It started again.
Oh, language. Hold on a second.
Edit. Undo this. I gotta take it again. Edit. Undo recorded media. Yes, thank you. All right, let's take it again. Here we go. All right, here we go. On this week's Loudini Rock and Roll Circus podcast, we're going to talk about the top albums from that magical year of 1984. Stick around. Get ready to rock out with your talk out. It's the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. All right, everybody. It's Loudini Rock and Roll Circus.
It's definitely a circus.
The circus has got started early this evening.
The clowns are in.
Bringing the clowns.
Yeah, I can see that.
There we go.
Whole pile clowning around down there in New Orleans. Keith, I love the T-shirt.
It is amazing, isn't it? It's amazing what they can do with one picture. I think they got even down to the lines in your head, whatever they want to do.
That's really that's
you like that? That's pretty nice. I think that's a good picture.
Listen, hold on. This is a podcast. People are listening, so we need to explain what they are experiencing. So, explain to the kids.
Just a one of a kind T-shirt. I think it's the only one in existence.
Explain to the kids at home what it is they're looking at. What it is we're looking at.
We are looking at a T-shirt made by me personally, not handmade, but I had somebody do it for you, for our show, our fearless leader Lou freaking Lombardi, for the Loudini Rock and Metal Circus, and there it is right there. I mean, what shouts rock and roll other than this fucking picture right here? And that's awesome. See what I'm
great.
Well, thank
you
very much.
Take a good look at it, people. If you see it at home, I'll get you one. $50.
I feel like Keith's got like a shrine of you in his house now of things that he has your face printed.
Yeah, I'm just
awesome.
I'm actually very flattered. So thank you, Keith. I'm really flattered.
I think it's hilarious. Actually, it's a nice shirt.
It's funny.
It's funny. It's printed on a fine gilded shirt, which will never shrink.
Nice. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Like
the character you have on the shirt is a little questionable, but the shirt itself is gorgeous. So
yeah, it's fine made. Handmade in Malaysia
by little children who have to pay $10 an hour to be able to work at the place.
16 cents.
Good stuff.
So it is Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. A little bit of business before we get too far into it. There's no reason, guys, to be playing with a boring-looking guitar. I've been telling you guys about this for a long time now. Get a hold of Chris Thunderwolf Dodson at wolfscustoms.online, and he can doctor up that guitar with an amazing finish. He does hollow flash and all kind of engraving and all kind of awesome stuff. Check it out there at wolfscustoms.online. Tell him Loudini sent you. Thank you, Rock Rage Radio, for hosting the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. We really do appreciate it, guys. It's a great place to listen to great guitar-driven rock 24/7. You can find out more by going to rockrageradio.com. And speaking of rockrageradio.com, we have a very famous Rock Rage Radio personality as part of our team. We have Lily V6.
What's up? We went to a show. Well, I went to a show this weekend.
I went to a show too, but there was no show. I heard the last 30 seconds of the last song.
And it was over.
The band that I was really going to see, not to take anything away from the other bands, but I was going to see Reign of Z because I have never seen them. And we've played them on the show, and I love that band. I think they're great. And we go there, and there's no Reign of Z.
Nope.
It's Reign of COVID.
It was Reign of COVID.
So we couldn't.
It rains every day, you know?
Yeah. So I hope that the guys are feeling better in the band. I saw some funny post by Zosa with her boyfriend or something this afternoon. She was pinching his nipple or something.
Oh, the video?
Yeah,
I saw that.
That's funny.
That was when they were on vacation.
So I hope that those guys get well soon and all that. Godspeed and blah, 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 yada, 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 whatever. Check them out, reignofz.com. You can check them out on the internet. Great band. So, we're talking about the albums from 1984. 1984 was kind of a big year.
It really was.
For records. Holy crap. And I don't just
Huge.
mean like... And there's some great rock and metal albums, but there's a lot of great pop albums that were very influential and went on to just be like complete tour de force kind of situations by some of our most famous, some of our most beloved artists as well. So let's go ahead and get into. Lily told me another one, so now my list is up to 21. So we're gonna try to keep it around 10 if we can, maybe 15, maybe some honorable mentions.
Okay.
There's a record that did come out at the very end of '83, but the song, the big hit single from it was one of the top 10 songs of 1984. So I'm gonna we can maybe put that in as an honorable mention a little bit later on. So Keith, why don't you go ahead and start, buddy? Because we started with Lily last week.
Okay.
And so let's jump into something that you want to talk about. One that you really love from this 19. And what's interesting about 1984 too, real quick, is that's we're getting into the mid 80s, and I believe a lot of these records and these artists sort of solidified what the 80s were going to be by this point. You know what I mean? The clothes, the hairstyles, all that. There's this sort of by these records, a lot of them were the ones that kind of said, okay, now this is what the 80s really are now. 70s are over, and I think a lot of records on this list really kind of firmly put their stamp. They're like, this is 80s. It's not 70s. It's not even 70s influence. It's a whole new thing. So very cool stuff. So go ahead, Keith.
I'm going to actually start with one of my faves. Probably if I had to numerically, count them down, this probably would be my top metal album of 1984, but it was Metallica's Ride the Lightning. So Ride the Lightning is a nice, mature departure from the raw sounds of Kill 'Em All, but it also had that just straight up thrash metal sound that Metallica is going to be known for throughout their career. I mean, and even if you want to call it a power ballad like Fade to Black, that's what they put that on there. They got songs like For Whom the Bell Tolls, Fight Fire with Fire, Trapped Under Ice. I mean, it's just Call of Cthulhu's a nice instrumental they have on there. The album is full of really, really great songs, very aggressive songs, a lot of songs about death, happy things like that. So it's a very, like I said, it's a very nice departure from Kill 'Em All, which had a more of I don't want to use garage band, but a very raw kind of sound. Like they were just starting to, cut their teeth on some different things. This one had a more mature. I think the arrangements were better. It's just a clever lines, more musical, cool, clever lines in there. They had some, you could just tell the band was starting to do something and go on to be the biggest metal band of all time. And it's just an album that is going to always be near and dear to my metal heart. So
Great album. I taught Fade to Black to like a lot of students, and so for whom the bell tolls as well. The album was the last album that featured any music by Dave Mustaine as well, so it's a kind of like a milestone in that sense. And did Kirk Hammett suggest the cover?
I don't know anything about that album.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, you're not a big Metallica
I'm not a big
fan.
Metallica fan.
So I believe Kirk Hammett suggested the cover. So yeah, great album. Good choice, my friend. Lily, what do you got?
Well, a lot of my picks pertain to that one topic we had a couple weeks ago about the PMRC. So my first one's going to pertain to that as well, and I of course dove into a lot of the glam stuff.
Can you, real quick, for folks who are not familiar, could you just give a quick 30-second explanation of the PMRC?
Basically, it's a bunch of parents who got together, led by Tipper Gore, wife of Al Gore, who tried to sort of shut down any vulgar music about sex, drugs, and all of that sort of thing. And they came up with the Filthy 15, just 15 songs that they deemed vulgar enough to have to put a sticker on the album to sell it with a parental guidance.
So this parental advisory stickers, that was the beginning of that. And if you want more information on it, please find our podcast called The Filthy 15.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So Wasp is actually on my list here. Their very debut album. Blackie Lawless has been in other bands prior to this, but this is what he's known for, is Wasp.
What's the name of the album?
Wasp.
Just called Wasp.
Yeah, it's their debut, just name. Actually, there's an interesting story behind that. It's been known under 3 different names. The spine on the European vinyl release was called Winged Assassins. The early cassette releases were called I Want to Be Somebody. And then the one we know, which it's officially called, is Wasp. Prior to the original release, the song Animal, F Like a Beast, for, censoring purposes, was deleted from the album, taken off. You couldn't have it on the original album. It was an import. You can only get it through import until 1998 when they reinstated it on the reissue. So kind of a cool thing. The notable songs are I Want to Be Somebody, Love Machine, and Tormentor, which was in the movie TerrorVision, great horror movie if you haven't seen it, but I think that's one of my favorites from 1984.
All right. So far we've been keeping it rock and metal. So far with Wasp and of course the legends themselves. It's so interesting because at this time, I don't even know if we realized Metallica was going to become the powerhouse and one of the most enduring bands.
No, I
of
doubt
all
if anybody
time.
knew that
So
at
it's
the
really
time.
fascinating that those guys have gone on to do what they've done. And Ride Lightning is their second album, and of course Wasp has gone on to do all sorts of things since then, and they'd probably still be touring if it wasn't for the scamdemic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shift gears for everybody.
Okay.
And I hope you guys don't get upset about this, but
Do it.
Not all albums that are really important musically or socially or important in terms of how they went on to influence people are necessarily heavy guitar driven albums. And the album I'm going to talk about now is the album Like a Virgin by Madonna. This record changed how all the girls looked. When this record came out, all of a sudden all the girls, the 80s girl look, boom,
was her.
Mall hair, all of that happened. Boom, like just transformed everything. Girls all of a sudden were wearing that, like the wide belt that was like low, and they had all the jewelry,
the fancy bras on the outside.
They would wear lace stuff on the outside of their clothes.
Lingerie is outerwear, basically.
And lingerie is outerwear. Thank you for clarifying that. Also, it has and I think Keith will appreciate this. It has a powerhouse production and backing band team. Yep.
I still wear the same bracelet she has. Actually, one of this is from her Like the Virgin tour.
So do you know who the rhythm section is on this?
You know what? You're going to get me on the bass player. I probably should know. Omar Hakim plays drums for sure on that album. I mean, if he's on every track, it sounds like he's on most of the album. I've never really read the liner notes of the album. I mean, I would expect, you're going to probably have to hand in your man card after this show for mentioning that one. But I don't. Give me the bass player. I don't know. It's got to be some heavyweights, Pino or somebody. Definitely Omar Hakim on the drums, though. I would believe.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Yeah, give it to me.
Okay, because this album has some. First of all, this album features the production stylings of Nile Rodgers. So
well, you can't go wrong with
top. And Niall does all the guitar work on it. Yes, there is very cool guitar work on it. It is not big, heavy, thick, distorted guitars, but very, very, very cool. It is basically the whole album is the rhythm section from Chic. It is Bernard Edwards and Tony Thompson.
Huh.
Major hitters of that era, of any era. Just one of the most killer freaking rhythm sections of all time. With you keeping that in mind, you go back and listen. I think you have new appreciation for this record. The other thing I want to sort of mention about why I think this record is so well. First of all, it was a powerhouse. Oh my God, right? Like this was inescapable. Mm-hmm. Then just a couple other records we're going to mention here as we go through today's show. They were just inescapable. Whether you liked them or not, you knew the songs. Right? Everybody knew the song Like a Virgin. You couldn't help it. Even if you hated the song,
you sang it.
You knew it because it was everywhere. This launches Madonna into superstardom. And then, we've talked about this before. Without Madonna, you don't have the next generation. You don't, even Cher's resurgence has a lot to do with Madonna. But you don't get Lady Gaga.
You won't have Lady Gaga without Madonna.
And a lot of those artists, I don't think you have Pink. There's a lot of other artists like that I don't think have the kind of impact without
any of the girls.
Without Madonna, without this record. Let me just kind of give you a quick. They had 5 hits: Like a Virgin, Material Girl, Angel, Into the Groove, and Dress You Up. All giant songs that you just like. Even oh my God, I can't stand Madonna. Why do I know every word to this freaking song? You just couldn't get
even Holiday, Borderline, and Lucky Star. Oh my gosh, you know all those.
Yeah, Holiday, Borderline, Lucky Star. Just boom, 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 massive record, massive, trend-setting situation there. So hats off to Madonna, love her, hate her. You got to give the devil her due.
Legit.
So, all right. On that happy note, let's move the conversation to the Hawkmeister.
I'm gonna go back to the metal if you don't mind. I'm gonna go with Judas Priest.
Wait a minute. No, we can't have metal on this show. I'm just kidding. Don't tease me.
If you don't mind, I'll go back to the metal for a moment. I'm gonna come back with some lighter stuff later anyway. That are just great albums. What are you gonna do? But right now, I'm gonna stick with a little bit of Judas Priest, Defenders of the Faith. This is probably one of my favorite Priest albums of all time. I was really into like Priest, Maiden kind of vibe. Metallica was starting to come up a little bit at this point, but that what would be considered any of his bands would be considered old school metal at this point. Even at that time, Priest has been around for a while. You know what I mean? So they're like they're bringing on the elder statesman kind of the vibe there. But there's great songs on the album: Free Will Burning, Eat Me Alive, Jawbreaker. You can go on and on. It's just the 2 guitars of Tipton and K.K. Downing, and Rob Halford's in his, he's in his prime, killing it vocally. There's very interesting lyrics on a lot of the songs, like Rob likes to do, and it's just a very good metal record.
Also, I made the Filthy 15 with Eat Me Alive.
And some Heads Are Gonna Roll is one of my favorite Priest riffs of all time.
It's another great song. I try to just, a couple of them, but there's a lot of really great songs on the record. And I think that it's one of those Priest albums. I think that later on, when Painkiller came out, I was like, damn, they're like really doing something here. But Defenders of the Faith was probably in that. I think it was one of the best Priest records up until Painkiller.
Whenever somebody, I did, whenever like I got to plug into a real heavy rock amp, I plug into a Marshall or a 5150 or something. The very first riff I play is Heads Are Gonna Roll. That just has everything, man. If you want to shake the rafters, man, play that riff through like a big loud amp with a nasty guitar. There's nothing else I can say about it, Keith. Great pick, my friend. Excellent. What do you got, Lily V6?
Next on my list is Whitesnake's Slide It In. Now, this was their 6th album, but it was probably the hardest one they did at that time. What's unique about it is that there are 2 different editions of this album, because when they signed on with Geffen remixed it for the U.S. release because they didn't like the UK release. They said it sounded too flat. So if you find both versions, they sound different. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I'd like to hear the UK version.
We should do a listening party some night.
Right? It is certified double platinum, over 4 million sold, and this, like I said, is the hardest at the time of their albums that came out. Of course, the band broke up, 3 years later? Yeah, 3 years later. But the songs I like are Slide It In, Love Ain't No Stranger, and Slow and Easy.
Interesting. You're talking about the differences in the releases. The British version features Mel Galley on guitars. Mm-hmm. The U.S. version features John Sykes. Interesting.
Yeah, I was reading that.
Very interesting. So they didn't like Mel's guitar work, so they went and replaced him with John. It was flat. I don't know what that means.
Here's an interesting little observation about that album. Do you think that Whitesnake, who went on to have super huge hits later on, do you think that they would have still had John Sykes in the band, they would have sounded the same and had them major hits later, like Still at Night, etc.? John Sykes was more of a bluesy rock guitar player. Would they still have, I'm not saying they wouldn't have had success, but they would have sounded the same? I don't know.
It's hard to say. Bernie Marsden was in that band too, and he's very bluesy. And
that's what I mean. It was a very, and Coverdale's always, been a very blues-inspired, singer anyway. And, great voice, and it's, still rolling. I don't even, how old is he now, 150?
About that. Like this year,
Follow him on Twitter, because he is he's Mr. Positivity.
Oh, I know.
He always posts really, super positive things. And
even during his shows, he's that way.
Yeah, just very kind of upbeat, kind of fun. Cozy Powell on drums, and, oh my God, I'm so not worthy, John Deep Purple Lord.
I knew you were going to say
on
that.
Keyboards. I am like, oh my God, John Lord.
Yeah, that's a pretty badass lineup. If they would have, that was my point. If they would have kept that lineup, would they have sounded the same? Probably not.
No.
Slide it in. Sykes' material I like too. I liked his. I like that Blue Murder stuff. I thought it was cool. It's different. It didn't have the same pop vibe that the later Whitesnake stuff did for sure. So, good point, Keith. Great questions. I love it. Thank you for bringing it up. We're going to throw it over. Was it Lily's turn?
It is now your turn.
My turn. I get to pick another one.
You do.
Oh my God! I'm so excited! Yay!
All right. Have another drink.
Oh, he's smiling.
Okay.
Makes the shirt smile.
This record, guys. Seriously, man. This record was. If you lived in the 80s, okay?
I did.
I was a baby.
If you lived through the 80s, this record, in so many ways, I think just absolutely defines the 80s. I mean, when you think of songs like Magic, Drive, Hello Again, think of that big Mutt Lange snare that sounds like somebody's punching you in the head, with this amazing pop, insanely catchy, maybe even danceable songs. Drive, which was one of the probably if we were to do a show on the top ballads of the 80s.
Oh my gosh.
Drive is going to be definitely,
it's going to have to be on there.
Definitely one of the top.
At least we have a new topic now,
right?
But Heartbeat City by the Cars. Oh my God.
I was not aware that Mutt Lange had produced that till today when I was seeing it. It came up on every friggin' list I was looking at, and Mutt Lange happened to be. It was one website where it showed you who produced it and and mixed and all that. And it actually said Mutt Lange, and I was like, I did not know that dude had his hands in that one too. So whatever he touches is going to turn to gold anyway.
It's just absolutely. I don't even know what to say about this record, because if you just have to hear it. Listen to it. It just brings back so much. There's just so much fun in that record, and it really plants the Cars firmly as an 80s thing. Yes, they started in the 70s, like a lot of the bands. Some of the other bands we're going to talk about. One of Keith and I's favorite bands is on this list, I'm sure. A little bit later on in the show, but these guys took their sound, and it almost when Heartbeat City came out, it was almost like, we were kind of waiting for this. Like, this is what the Cars like. They kind of came into their own. It was like, this is what they actually sound like, and it actually, in many ways, I think, made a lot of their older songs sound even better, because now we had a context. They were making 80s music even before the 80s. So it's an amazing record. Go back and listen if you haven't listened to it in a while. And the other thing about the Cars, man, they always had great album artwork.
Yeah,
Just really freaking cool.
Candio.
Yeah, every single one of the records have super fun artwork. So check it out. You might think top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Giant record, and the song Magic. I mean, that's the one that like sort of
Magic's on there. Drives of Benjamin Orr.
Ben Orr sang Drive.
What an underrated singer that guy is. Huh?
Well, yeah, and he actually sang a lot of their other hits as well. He's done a lot of their other songs.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely.
But a little.
I mean, Rick Ocasek was a lot of a lot of the stuff too. But I think Benjamin Orr definitely is a strong singer and probably
But the video to Drive features Paulina. How do you say
Porskova? That was Rick Ocasek's wife.
And later on became, but she's in the video, and Rick and her arguing in the video, and eventually they became. She married.
Was hosting America's Next Top Model for a while. Well, she was a judge, and Rick made a couple appearances on that, which I thought was kind of funny.
That's the funny thing about that. To make a coincidence between the last two, or that record, Mutt Lange and Rick Ocasek working together. Two not very handsome men, and also able to snag supermodels and good-looking women in their prime like Shania Twain. Congratulations to those guys. You make ugly men everywhere proud of you. Thank you very much.
That's great.
Gotta give credit where credit's due. We're so not.
I'll give credit where credit. It's that. As soon as you pick up a guitar, man, or you can sing, I mean, they just melt for your ass. I don't know what it is.
That is so true.
I don't know, bitch.
And we gotta give rest in peace, Rick Ocasek and Ben Orr. The world is not the same without you. So, who's next?
That's all, Keith.
Mr. Keithman.
Yes, sir.
Keithy Keithenheimer. What do you got, brother?
I'm going to go with a little Ronnie James Dio, The Last in Line. And this record is where I discovered Dio. I actually was watching probably Headbangers Ball or something, and then all of a sudden I've heard Ronnie James Dio, the legend of Ronnie James Dio, but then I actually got to hear the song Last in Line. And then that's such a cool but cheesy at this time would be cheesy. But the video was cool, and it was just a great song. It has them big, heavy drums in the beginning. Then you go on to have songs like We Rock, Evil Eyes, and the awesome Egypt the Chains Are On, which is a masterpiece of the tune. That's a very great record, and I think Ronnie James just solidified himself in that record. I don't know, is that his second solo album, I think?
That is the second, and also that is their highest charting.
Yeah, it's just a great record, and one of them ones that just stand the test of time. I mean, I was surprised that came. I thought it came out later, but when I was looking through all the dates and stuff, I'm glad I was on there. So that was a good pick. That would make my top 10 definitely metal rock albums of '84, and that's just a solid hard rock metal album.
Vinny, how do you say his last name, Keith?
Appice
on drums.
Or a piece. Whatever you want to say.
People say it different. I never actually know the real pronunciation.
Viv Campbell,
yeah,
who went on to be in Whitesnake and Def Leppard.
Yep.
Ultimately, and cancer survivor. So, God bless Viv. Amazing guitar player.
Jimmy Bain was on that record, I think. Jimmy Bain
on bass. Yeah. Quick shout out to Ronnie as the producer of this album as well. I did not know that he produced it. That is pretty badass. Because it sounds great. It sounds absolutely amazing.
And I heard he was a cool dude.
And he was a little Italian. He was a little Italian man.
I could fit him in my purse.
Hey, you guys are listening to Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. You want to go to LouLombardiRocks.com. Lots of cool stuff there. We've got a guitar giveaway. We've got lessons. We've got coaching. Got all kind of cool stuff there. We've got a great group of folks as well. There's a private Facebook group where people are sharing music and talking about music 24/7. Lily, who's watching tonight? Did we get anybody watching?
We have got Bill Damiano, Chris Thunderwolf, Tracy Sampson, Billy Altman, and that's who I have on the Lou Lombardi's Inner Circle.
Okay, guys. So shout out to all y'all. We do appreciate it. We love you. Billy Altman sent me a message yesterday. He said hi. Hi, Billy. Thank you for hanging out with us. We do appreciate it. And you do not have to go to bed. Stay up for a little while.
Just a little bit.
He has quite the conversationalist, that Billy Altman, man. This guy, sometimes he's a geyser, just a blow in my mind.
Fountain.
It was really nice meeting you at the Y&T show, too.
Yes.
So I'm really glad you came out. Lily.
Next, I'm going to have to go with Power Slave.
Power Slave.
Iron Maiden, of course.
Kind of power down there.
Continued to blend metal and progressive rock. What they do and resulted in this album. as their other albums, they took the lyric ideas from history, literature, and fantasy, which is why I love Iron Maiden. I love all their epic songs. The song 2 Minutes to Midnight became a U.S. rock radio hit. It's their first album to feature the same personnel as their previous studio release, and the lineup would remain the same for 2 further studio releases. So that's kind of cool for everybody to be the same. And it's also the last album to date to feature an instrumental piece, which is Lost for Words. And I love 2 Minutes to Midnight, Power Slave, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Which is 13 minutes long.
Steve Harris Cup is just 13 minutes long, which is basically the entire poem by Sam Coleridge, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Legit.
So, these guys were doing stuff like that. I mean, Metallica does a song, Call of Cthulhu, which is, hey, I'm sorry, H.P. Lovecraft's literature to me. Sorry. So, the metal guys are like, right, they've got,
They know what's up.
They're listening to some stuff. They've got their ear to the ground. They're doing they're actually reading stuff.
Very well versed.
Yeah.
But anytime I can talk about Iron Maiden, I will do so. So it fit in this category.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that Iron Maiden made it on this. And I remember when the song 2 Minutes to Midnight came out, and I just thought that riff was so insane. And I've said many times, I became a Maiden fan later because Pittsburgh radio
doesn't play stuff like that.
Did not play them at all. So I'd hear like that, or I'd hear Flight of Icarus, something like, more, and then it was like they were like, screw you, we're gonna play ZZ Top
again.
Yeah, and Led Zeppelin and screw you. Yeah. So that was, but anyways, yeah, great pick, Lil. It's on my list as well. One of my absolute favorite records of all freaking time. This next record, we haven't done it. Well, we kind of did with the Madonna thing, but.
Oh, I know it. I like that one
but
too.
But this record, I want to talk about a record that is just a collection of folks getting together and working with one of our. Now, I think Don Henley. Whatever you think of him, his testifying before Congress or whatever you think about that stuff. You got to give the devil his due. One of the absolute greatest singers in all of rock ever. And also, like, one of the just purely greatest artists in rock. And he had started putting out solo albums.
And a drummer.
And he's a great drummer. Great foot on...
I wouldn't say he was a great drummer. He's a good drummer. He's a drummer.
I know
singing drummer, I wouldn't say he's great, but he's a good
Well, a lot of guys
drummer.
love his foot on Life in the Fast Lane. I know a lot of guys are like, oh my God, that is just the way he syncopates that. That's really cool.
No, it's a cool thing. Him and Timothy Beachman are right on that shit, right?
So he put out this record called Building the Perfect Beast, which is a kind of cool title because it's kind of what he did. Mm-hmm. He works with guys like Mike Campbell and Ben Tench from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and then he brings in people like Jim Keltner and Waddy Wacho, Pino Palladino, Steve Porcaro, Ian Wallace, Belinda Carlisle, Lindsey Buckingham. This is like a who's who of people coming together, and he did it again a few years later in a possibly even bigger way on another record, which was not released in 1984, so we're not going to talk about that record. But this record probably includes one of the most iconic 80s songs that right?
Chills every time I hear it. I literally just downloaded this whole album the other day.
It's beautiful, it's touching, it's amazing. And there's a great story behind the Boys of Summer that I told before, and I love this story. I'm going to tell it again. Mike Campbell brought Boys of Summer to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and Tom was like, nah, Mike, I don't really think so. I don't really think the song is going to work. And he took it. He's like, okay, so we'll put it on Don Henley's record, and the rest was freaking history.
And people love to cover that song too.
A lot of people have covered it. It's this is Don Henley's Africa.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's what it is. It's Don Henley's Africa. People just love it. People can't stop playing it. But anyways, the record was released in 1984. With songs like Boys of Summer, of course. All She Wants to Do Is Dance. Which,
I love it.
When the Eagles reunited on the Hell Freezes Over and they did the VH1 concert, you see Joe Walsh dancing, and believe it or not, this is what douchebags the Eagles were. They yelled at Joe Walsh because they said he was taking away Don Henley's moment because he was dancing that, right? But also has Not Enough Love in the World and Sunset Grill, which is the longest song on the album. Kurt Loder wrote that Building the Perfect Beast is a meticulously crafted and programmed set of songs about love and politics. First side is given to personal reflections of love and loss, such as Boys of Summer. Side 2 is more issue-oriented, tackling subjects of genetic engineering from Building the Perfect Beast to America's reckless foreign policy. All she wants to do is dance. Just, an amazing record. Can't say enough about it, like about most of these records. And those of you who are, in your late 40s, early 50s will know that this is one of those records that was like part of your soundtrack.
Oh, it still is.
Absolutely amazing record. If you haven't listened, all these records, guys, if you haven't listened to them, well, go back and go back and check them out again, because they are definitely worth a listen. So, Building the Perfect Beast by Don Henley. Keith, what do you got next, brother?
I don't know. So many, man. I don't know what to say. Here, real quick,
Okay,
though.
Lily, go ahead.
I don't have a lot of knowledge on this record because I just found this out. But before this band is gonna go on and still around to go on and be huge, but I didn't realize that they were around this early. But in 1984, Red Hot Chili Peppers released an album called Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I don't even know one damn song on it. But as you know, the rest is history, because after that band blew up and did some good things. So I like the Chili Peppers, and they had that. They've gone through stages in the band where they were funky, and then they're not.
Well, they were
funky.
sort of, when they came out, they were alternative when alternative wasn't really sort of a thing yet.
Yeah, I definitely would want to give props to that later on, because a lot of bands that were at the forefront of what the alternative movement would be put out albums in this year, and there's a who's who of.
Okay, along that lines, I just wanted to, because we're not going to get deeply into any of these other these records, but I want to say this year also saw the release of Reckoning by REM, which was a big developmental record for them. It did not make the radio, but got a lot of rave reviews, and college folks loved it, as well as How Will the Wolves Survive by Los Lobos, which was the world's introduction to them. And it was a big selling album, again, for a record that got virtually no airplay. So there's some of these, we'll call them like honorable mention kind of records that were, they were germinating there and getting these bands' careers started. What do you got, Keith?
Actually, I had The Reckoning on my album as my next pick, but I really like REM, and I think that it's a really good record. It shows. I know they had some squabbles with their label, and after Murmur came out, and they wanted to Murmur Part 2, and they kind of just wanted to do their own thing. REM is a band that I know a lot of people have like a love-hate thing with. There's not a lot in between with that band. I think they're really good songwriters. I don't buy or listen to everything they do, but I would give respect to where it's due, and I think that they had a ton of longevity. They've been around. They're a really great American rock band that probably doesn't get the credit they deserve. I think that second record, they started getting more mature with the arrangements. Their harmonies were good. Michael Stipe was starting to come into his own as a frontman and a lyricist. And I think that, South Central Rain and, Don't Go Back to Rockville, songs like that are very catchy and can still be played on the radio today.
I want to give a shout out on this record to Don Dixon and Mitch Easter, because REM was a band that liked to work with different producers, as we're going to talk about with some other bands, I believe, on this list. And Mitch Easter and Don Dixon, I think, had a lot to do with REM sound and helping those guys. They were very young, and to kind of help them sort of figure out what they were doing and how to put stuff together. So I don't think we can emphasize that enough in the case of some of these younger bands like this. So good pick, Keith. Good pick. Lily, what do you got next?
I'm going to do Love It First Sting by the Scorpions. It's their 9th album, but it has some of their most popular songs ever that people would know. 3 of the most famous songs, It's Rock You Like a Hurricane, Still Loving You, and Big City Nights. The initial recording session they did yielded no songs, so they started over, basically.
Wow. I did not know that.
And it's notable due to it being right. You did all this whole recording and you used none of the songs. It's one of the first digitally recorded hard rock albums ever released.
It's not like you're on the radio or anything.
I mean, people know what I mean. And it was the most successful album, going triple platinum by 1995 on the number 6 on the Billboard 200 digitally. I got it. I got it that time.
I'm bringing it to you digitally.
Thank you. I'm stuttering over my own words.
Klaus, Rodolph, Matthias, Francis, and Herman.
Klaus mean.
No. What's his name, though? No Uli Roth.
No, that Uli Roth was before that.
Yeah, he was before this. But
yeah, he's definitely out at that point.
Yeah, Big Titty Nights. That's what we called it.
I love that song.
But Rock You Like a Hurricane was a big video, right, Keith?
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that video?
Got girls in cages.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers that.
Every guy remembers the girl.
I think every girl
knows
remembers
the-
that too, though.
Girls in cages. You know that one with girls. You don't even know the song. You know that one down there. We watching the South Side on the TV. They got girls in cages down there. I heard.
Wasn't that like a staple for music videos of the 80s, though?
Probably.
But the riff to Rock You Like a Hurricane was just like everybody. It was one of those riffs like you had to learn. This, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It was just one of those.
Klaus is another one you can fit in your purse.
Hello, man. Hello,
Little German man.
Little German man. We had a little Italian man before. Now we got a little German man.
Collect them all.
I
Pokemon.
remember seeing interviews with them on like Headbangers Ball, and they would try to be so funny, and they had that really bad English, and they were trying to be funny, and they weren't funny, and you were just like, kind of, did you laugh? Because you kind of thought their music, but you're like, you're not funny. I don't know what the hell you're doing. And it's confusing.
It's so funny because some of the other German bands are very like dark and serious, like Rammstein and Accept.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Have a more like kind of like, and the Scorps seem like, you know, they're just having a good time. They're just happy to play rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
They sort of showed like, it's sort of like, you know, they're sort of breaking the stereotype.
And I do love the album art for that album.
Oh, yeah. Well. Great cover. Absolutely love it. First Sting. So, who's next? Is me? Am I next?
You're next again.
Oh, my goodness. I'm
Yeah,
getting
man,
all
you
the
want to
turns.
take 2 turns, go do what you want, man. You take 2 or 3 turns in a row. You got carte blanche. I like you so much, I put you on my shirt.
He does. He's the president of your fan club.
Got
All
one
right.
member.
I want to talk about an album.
You go for it.
And this album, this poor lady was in a terrible relationship in the 60s. And she wiggled her way free of it and said, all I want is to keep my name. That's all I want. You can have Ike, you can have everything else. I want to keep my name. And she kept her name, and it took about 10 years. But she was completely vindicated when she released the album Private Dancer in 1984. Tina Turner, who doesn't know Tina Turner?
You should.
Big hit with the song Private Dancer. What's Love Got to Do with It?
I love that song.
Better Be Good to Me. She does a cover of I Can't Stand the Rain and Let's Stay Together by Al Green. Features
Good shit, man.
Features many great musicians as well. It's like a kind of who's who of musicians on this, including Jeff Beck on guitar. And there is a great story where Beck came and played on the record, and he's like, you know, he did not want any money. He says, all I want is you to autograph my guitar.
That's cool.
And so Tina gets out like some marker or something like that, and Jeff Beck is like, no, that's never. That's gonna fade off. Like it's gonna wear off. So she's like, okay, no problem. She whips out a freaking switchblade. This is how badass she was. When you're Tina Turner and you had to deal with Ike all them years, she probably figured I gotta have a blade. So she whips out the switchblade and she starts like carving her name. And he's like, no. He's like, just scratch it in there. And it's a very famous guitar. I believe it was on tour at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and been in different places with her name. She just full blast, man, scratched Tina Turner and his guitar, and the rest, as they say, is history. But Joe Sample, jazz keyboardist Joe Sample is on the record. Mark Knopfler is involved with the record.
Yay.
A lot of great musicians are just all over this thing. And another one of those records you should revisit if you haven't heard it in a while. Also, Private Dancer was won a Grammy for Song of the Year in 1984. So Tina kind of vindicated, gets herself back. Actually, let me restate that. Mark Knopfler actually wrote Private Dancer.
Nice.
Yeah. So, anyways, guys, there's a little bit of Tina Turner for you. Who's next? Keith.
I'm gonna go with a band that I think when they made this record, it was kind of like the prelude to what they would become, and they were starting to do the climbing up the ladder thing, and then they went on to be huge. This is the Unforgettable Fire.
It's on my list too. Yep.
I think that when you have people like Brian Eno and Daniel Lenoir at the helm for this one, I think they both produced it, if I'm not mistaken. Took a young band and just brought the best out of them. And people know like songs like Unforgettable Fire and Pride in the Name of Love, and then but that album just launched them to bigger and better things. And it was like the forthcoming of what would be like albums like the Joshua Tree and things like that were obviously one of my favorite rock albums, my top 10 rock albums, and personally for me in my life. So that's it's one of those things where that was like the little stepping stone toward greatness. But it's still a good record. Come on, '84, and like I said, having those two guys produce it, that's not a bad thing.
I remember I had Boy, October, and War. I had all three of them. And I was just a huge fan. I thought these guys were everything to me. And then I heard that Brian Eno was going to produce The Unforgettable Fire. And Brian Eno, yes, he worked at the Talking Heads. But he also made a lot of like ambient records, like leaves rustling and stuff. And so I remember being really afraid that U2 was going to put out like some very bizarre album with like leaves rustling and Bono moaning and like, God only knows what.
Animal sounds. Yeah,
animal sounds and like, what I mean, wind. And I was like, oh, no. But it turned out to be a really great direction shift for them. And it really showed that like they can do a lot. They could do other kind of music. They didn't have to just do War Part 2. They said that like the record label and everything was very much like, no, wait a minute, no. You got to do like War Part 2 because that was like, you guys are on the brink of big pop success. This is what we want you to do. And Pride in the Name of Love was a big hit for them. There's other great songs on that album. Sort of Homecoming. There's a lot of great songs on it, but it wasn't the hit machine. But it was good enough that they did an arena tour. And I saw them at the Civic Arena on this tour, and it was absolutely packed. I don't know if it was sold out, but it was absolutely packed. And so they lost nothing. And it allowed them to kind of continue to switch gears, right? Because then they go on and do records like the Joshua Tree, and then they switch it up again later on with like the Zoo TV and
Yeah,
they were able to move around,
This was one of them albums that it was like a launching pad for them. I mean, it's like I said, it wasn't. A lot of people know Pride in the Name of Love, and maybe that's the only song on the record. But it's not. I don't think it's their best work. I think the Joshua Tree is a masterpiece. But it just goes to show you where they were going, and they stuck with the Daniel Lenoir's of the world and did some more producing with him, and like had him work on a lot of different things. And I don't know where the thing goes and comes and goes with them, but I think he worked on some other stuff too, but don't quote me on that. But it just goes, there was a long period of time where from the 80s into the 90s into the 2000s where U2 was like the biggest band in the world. They're doing different stadiums, man.
Yeah.
I've seen them in Heinz Field.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a small venue.
And very often playing 2 nights. Yeah. In big places like that, yeah.
They went on to be a huge band. I mean, it's just tough to be in a band, like, as you would know. I mean, for some people, you can't stand for 15 minutes, let alone over 30, 40 years, man. Anybody that can be in a band with people that long, they've never changed members once.
I want to say one more thing about this record before we move on, and that is there's an obscure track on this album. It's track 3 called Wire. If you're a guitar player, you need to check it out because Edge's guitar work on this is insane. It's not shred, but it's like damn insane. It's kick ass. Check it out. Lily, what do you got? I'm
going to go non-metal on my next one. I'm just going to go with Purple Rain, Prince and the Revolution.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Another masterpiece. Not a great movie, but it's Prince. It was on my list too. It is definitely great. Probably one of the best albums of the 80s, if not one of the best movie soundtracks ever.
Yeah, obviously the soundtrack to the film of the same name. First album where the revolution is actually billed. I can't even talk. It was the first album to reach #1 on the Billboard 200. Their first album to reach #1 on the Billboard 200. Spent 24 weeks there. Won several Grammys. It was actually listed in the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry for cultural, historical, or aesthetically important a record. So take that, Tipper Gore, since Darling Nikki made the Filthy 15.
Absolutely.
And is noted as one of the greatest albums of all time, as Keith said.
I got to tell you, man, this is one of
It's a masterpiece.
We've talked about this before. The records that are all killer, no filler.
Yeah.
There's not a bad track on that
Even
record.
Computer Blue, which was like not a big hit, is a really cool song. Like there's nothing on this record. Baby, I'm a Star. I Would Die for You. Darling Nikki, the beautiful ones. Are, all,
When Doves Cry.
Well, I was just talking about the ones that weren't real famous.
Ones that weren't.
Are still great songs. Take Me With You. A great
that's a great
song.
They're all great songs. I used to do Computer Blue in a band and went to, it pretty much fell on deaf ears and crickets, but I mean, it was cool just to cover songs off that record because nobody was really doing it, we were trying to do some the band I was in was really digging that record, and we were trying to do like some more obscure stuff off that album. Everybody do Let's Go Crazy and When Doves Cry, but I mean, yeah, there's not a bad song on the record. It is a true masterpiece of a record.
Are you ready, Wendy? Yes, Lisa. Let's begin.
I hate you.
Insane record.
Is the water warm enough?
Oh my God, is the water? Yeah, I know, it's great. Okay, I'm gonna keep in the same tradition as the Sixer over here with a non-metal record that is, but this record, and I know this is an artist that Keith doesn't love this artist, but he does love about 35 of his songs.
I know who you're gonna say.
Yeah, but it's 35 out of 635. That's what can I say?
And I mean, come on, the boss.
I mean,
And if you ever wanted to know why they call him the boss, pick up a copy of 1984's Born in the USA. It is, again, all killer, no filler. It's not everybody's taste, I understand. But it is an amazing record that was neck and neck with Purple Rain at the same time. They were out at the same time, and they were like, all the magazines were like, what's going to be album of the year? Is it going to be Purple Rain, or is it going to be Born in the USA? Just just one of these records that just blew everybody away. It was Springsteen's second appearance on the cover of Time magazine. Songs like Born in the USA, Cover Me, Darlington County, Working on the Highway, I'm on Fire, not Billie Jean, Bobby Jean, Dancing in the Dark, the first appearance of Courtney Cox.
Yes,
in that video.
With her short hair.
Way before Friends.
Yep. She was Springsteen's friend before she was anybody else.
They were friends
first. But it is an amazing record. Of course, the E Street Band just plays their freaking asses off. Roy Bittan, Clarence Clemens, Gary Talents, little Steven Van Zandt, Max, of course, the amazing Max Weinberg. Just one amazing track after another. And this was the follow-up to a record he did right before this. Actually, the sessions for Born in the USA and Nebraska, I believe, ran kind of around the same time. And the songs were written, and they were deciding what was going to be Born in the USA material, what was going to be Nebraska material. Nebraska is a mostly kind of acoustic record, very, very low instrumentation, small instrumentation. So, and then he comes out with this and blows everybody away. Big, and it's the first Springsteen album to ever feature synthesizers. He never used synthesizers until Born in the USA, a little known fact. So, and then again, you can read it yourself. Rolling Stone, everybody basically licks Springsteen's ass.
And he loves it.
For 2 years after this record came out. He could never and probably the closest thing he ever came to again was the Rising, which is a great album. But he never really kind of equaled that same success again. But lightning struck twice between Born to Run and then about 10 years later he does Born in the USA. What can I say? Springsteen, the boss. Okay, we got time to do we're going to go round the room one more time.
A round robin.
Yeah, because we are running low on time. I always create extra content for these, but we don't ever need it.
Nope.
No. So anyways, but Keith, what do you got?
Who do you think you're working with? You're a bunch of amateurs? You got this shit.
You're right, brother.
All right, so this isn't my favorite album by them, but I had to put it out because it did come out in '84. I love Queen. They put out an album that year. It's called The Works. It does have Radio Gaga on it. Hammer to Fall. I Want to Break Free. They have videos for like a few of those tunes. Like I said, I don't think it's not Night at the Opera, but it's a good record, and I think it's kind of starts to spiral a little bit after that. But I mean, it's for the most of it, it's a pretty solid record. I like Hammer to Fall. There's a great guitar riff in that song. So that's all I got to say about that one, Forrest.
That's all I have to say about that.
Lily V6.
I'm just going to say it, 1984 Van Halen.
Yeah, duh.
Chock full of great songs.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I was waiting for one of y'all to say it.
Last album, Until a Different Kind of Truth, to feature David Lee Roth, because he and Eddie were not getting along, for lack of a better term, I guess. As of this last year, the full-length feature album... as of this year, this is the last full-length feature album to contain all 4 original members. One of the 2 of Van Halen's best-selling albums with over 10 million copies sold. The other one is the one we talked about last week, which is the debut. Reached number 2 on the Billboard 200, stayed there for 5 weeks, just behind Michael Jackson's Thriller that EVH also worked on, and that's Eddie Van Halen, for those of you who don't know. Gained a wider audience at the time because Eddie discovered the synthesizer for the 80s.
I am going to give you guys, if you've forgotten 1984, let me give you guys a quick overview. Indira Gandhi was murdered. Poison gas escapes from Union Carbide factories. AIDS breaks out. Hit songs from 1984, and some of these are going to be very familiar. Owner of a Lonely Heart was the #1 song. I have 90125 on my list, but technically it came out at the end of 1983. I mentioned this at the beginning of the show.
Okay.
I was going to say, that didn't come up on any of my list either, but we'll let it go.
It technically it did, but
that song was released in 1984.
Yeah, but it was a big hit. So the #1 songs were Loner of a Lonely Heart, Karma Chameleon by Culture Club.
I know that one.
Jump by Van Halen, we were just talking about that. Footloose by Kenny Loggins. I have the album Footloose on my list as well. Bunch of hit songs on that. Against All Odds, Phil Collins. Hello by Lionel Richie. He had a big album that year, won tons of AMAs for that. Let's Hear It for the Boy,
which was on Footloose.
Which was on Footloose.
That's outrageous.
That's outrageous. If you don't get that reference, look it up. Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper. The Reflex by Duran Duran.
And of course,
When Doves Cry by Prince. So those are the top 10 hit songs in 1984. Just quick correction, the Grammy Awards that year was not Private Dancer. Record of the year was What's Love Got to Do with It.
Oh, well.
And the song of the year was What's Love Got to Do with It. Best album, Can't Slow Down by Lionel Richie.
Nice.
Male vocalist of the year was Phil Collins for Against All Odds. Female vocalist was Tina Turner for What's
so basically
Love.
She won everything.
You know, she was like huge. Now check out the TV shows from this year. Dynasty. Dallas.
The 2 competitors.
The Cosby Show. 60 Minutes is like on every one. Right?
Yeah, right. It's on every countdown.
Family Ties, Michael J. Fox. The A-Team. Remember this one, Keith? Simon and Simon.
I hated that show.
If you are listening to the show in a retirement facility right now, Murder, She Wrote.
My grandma loved that.
Knots Landing and Falcon Crest were all on there. The Academy Awards, Best Picture,
Oh,
Amadeus.
I hate that movie.
Best Director, Amadeus. Best Actor, Amadeus. Best Actress, Places in the Heart, Sally
Amadeus was
Field.
the actor in that movie?
So Amadeus kind of swept the Academy Awards that week. And the top 10 movies of that year were Beverly Hills Cop, Footloose, Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes,
Indiana Jones,
Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is my personal favorite.
Love that
Indiana
movie.
Jones,
Jones,
Karate Kid, The Natural, and Police Academy. So 1984 was a fun year. Any records you guys just want to say real quick before we wrap up? I'll give you, without getting into too much detail. Keith, what do you got? Last one.
You know, I'm going to give just a nod to a couple bands. These bands went on to like be huge after this, and it like was at the forefront. I'd like to think of what the alternative movement was. The Cure, The Replacements, Husker Du, The Smiths. They all put out records in that year, and they probably were like misunderstood, or like people were like, "What the hell is this?" And then it ends up being, pretty all right for those guys. A lot of Rush put up Grace Under Pressure that year.
I was going to. Oh, you stole my thunder, but thank you.
Not one of my favorite Rush records, but I mean, it's too synthy for me. But they end up returning to their sound eventually. And again, Grace Under Pressure is still a Rush record, so I'm not going to dog it. It's not my favorite Rush record, but it's awesome.
Is anybody going to mention Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath?
I didn't put it on my list. I know it's from 1984. I actually have Tooth and Nail by Dokken as one of mine, Stay Hungry, Twisted Sister, which made the Filthy 15, and I also put Out of the Cellar by Rat. I know that they didn't have anything good after that, but that was a really great album for Rat.
You're talking about, get out of here, man.
They did not do anything
Lay It Down
good.
is an amazing, it's like their greatest riff ever. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think their album that was on was good.
That's a great riff. Yeah, if you're going to go, like, those are all on the list I've seen, and those are all solid picks with that. You can stick to the metal, heavier metal theme with that. Anthrax put off Fistful of Metal that year, and actually Slayer released an EP called Haunting the Chapel. So that's,
I believe we touched on every single one on my list with the exception of one. And this is, this was not a big hit, but it did spawn one big hit song, and this is a great record. I have it on vinyl. Body and Soul by Joe Jackson. If you don't know Joe Jackson's music, you are you need to listen to it because it's beautiful music. Joe put out this record, and he toured, and the tour really took a big toll on me. Did not tour for a long time afterwards, but it's a very cool record. It's got the song, "You Can't Get What You Want Till You Know What You Want," and the record is very jazzy, and the cover is an ode to Stanley Turrentine. Excuse me, Sonny Rollins, beg your pardon. So check that one out as well. So that's my kind of final pick on that. Loudini Rock and Roll Circus, guys. Go to LouLombardiRocks.com. You get all the information there about what we got going on. Give a shout out to wolfscustoms.online. Check them out. Get that custom job done on your ukulele, your swinette, your triangle, Lily, I remembered. Your guitar,
cowbell,
bass, your cowbell. Chris will do. Chris Thunderwolf Dodson will do. This is those of you who are watching can see this is what Hollow Flash looks like. And he does a very cool thing with Hollow Flash, so check it out. Go to wolfscustoms.online. Rock Rage Radidio, we love you guys. Go to rockrageradio.com, download the app, and you can just listen to great music. I mean, Sirius is like $8 a month or $6 a month, but Rock Rage Radio, the app is completely free to hear great music and great shows like the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus and Hot
Licks with Lily 6,
That's
Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Hot Licks with Lily 6. The Sixer will give it to you.
On your double shot of Hot Thursday nights.
Hot Thursday nights.
Got a hard damn.
Keith, any parting thoughts before we roll out of here tonight? Last word goes to Keith Hawkins.
I don't know. Keep it real.
That's a great... No is your last word.
My
No.
last word, I don't know.
My last words were, I dig music. I'm on drugs. No, I don't know.
I'm on drugs.
So much pressure.
I know. We'll do it again next week. You work something up, something real clever. How's that sound? Tune in next week when you'll hear Keith the Hawk Hawkins say, I don't know.
I think I shit myself.
All right, we are going to come back and party a little bit, but we're going to actually end the official podcast right now. But check us out. Go to LouLombardiRocks.com for all your Loudini needs, and we'll catch you guys all on the next Loudini Rock and Roll Circus.
Some mellow tunes with it.
Feeling mellow, yellow, quite right. Okay, Inner Circle folks, stick around. I'm gonna start a new stream. So I'm gonna close. Billy, I'm gonna start a new stream if you're watching, buddy. So I'm gonna close everything right now, and then we'll come back and fix it up. All right. Talk to you guys later. Have a great week.